Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, the man who is thoughts become things, Neo-Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And for those who have wondered where the show was the last few days, unfortunately, on Tuesday, I tested positive for COVID and kind of knocked me on my back, to say the least. So I've been crawling my way back ever since. And today I felt like, okay, maybe I'm just strong enough. I can sit up, talk to some friends, feel a little bit better this way. And fortunately, I've got my friend Neo here, who is really good at helping to stay in that positive zone. So good to see you. By the way, Debbie G is, she and hubby Joe are flying back from Hawaii from their trip. So they'll be joining us again next week. But Neo is looking a whole lot healthier than I am. I can tell you that. How you doing, my friend?
Life is good, man. Life is good. I've been combining, as always, field testing a slew of different mental exercises and combining my better ones that I've gotten from other people and learned over the years and seeing what results I get. It's just been amazing. The results are coming in. Like I'm this whole human code, I'm this close to cracking it, man.
Ooh.
Awesome.
Cracking the code. But yes, we got Amanda Kate here today with us, all the way from Australia.
Yeah.
You guys will hear it in an accent. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. It's such an honor to be here with both of you today.
Love to have you. And thank you for getting, I mean, people don't realize, I think it's 7 a.m. where you are right now.
My hair's all wet because I've just literally, I got off about 5, did a workout, had my shower, and sitting here now with my coffee ready to go.
Oh, we appreciate it. That's really great of you to do that. Now, you also have, well, first of all, you have a book, your most recent book. It kind of summarizes what my life has been lately. I mean, the way I summarized, I kind of twisted what you said around. I said, divine can be messy. That's the way I titled the podcast.
Yeah.
But it is, right? I mean, that's you have to dive into the mess in order to get to the divine.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was really interesting when I was, I had a working title for the book, which is probably not appropriate for air. And I was like, how do I market this? Like, I love the working title. But let's just give you a clue. It has the C word in it. So that's why I was like, it was a message I got in a meditation. So there was a reason behind that, by the way. But
interesting meditations you have.
It was a message from my inner wise person. Anyway, it was how I knew it was them, really, to be honest.
Okay. Hey, whatever works, I'm not going to criticize. It's fine with me,
Sometimes they have to give you messages in ways you're going to get
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, well, I'm always talking about making our human experience less messy. So that was one of the hashtags I was using. And, I talk about it in clinic, when we're dealing through the mess of life, it's like we're pulling that gunk out of the toilet drain and going, what the hell do I do with this? And we're trying to make a wig out of it or something crazy. But then, messily human, it kind of hits most of it, but we all have that divine part of us. And that's why that word is specifically first. And when I was telling it to my editor, I'm like, they need to be the 3 words, 3 full, complete sentences on their own. And because that's kind of what life is. And the messy human aspect only adds to the divinity at times. It helps us find those lessons that lead us to the divine. And I think that's the really important bit. And even in our messiest, least resourceful place, we are still connected to the divine because we all have that within us. So, yeah.
And you were inspired not just to write this book, but also to pursue your current life course because of experiences. Like this so often happens, but because of experiences you had, right?
Yeah.
Like give us we don't want to depress everybody, but give everybody like a little 10,000-foot view kind of thing.
Really, really quick overview. White, middle class, Church of England raised girl, went through school, good grades. Did everything that everybody else wanted her to do, and really worked my ass off to please everybody else. I'd put everybody else above me and ahead of me. And, I was just constantly trying to prove to everybody that I was lovable enough or worthy enough or whatever. And that, led to, I got glandular fever just before my year 12 exams. And then, found myself in an emotionally and psychologically abusive marriage. And, as kind of ends up being the way. And then, as a lot of people who have Epstein-Barr know, it does tend to lead into other autoimmune diseases. So I started looking at Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis, and I got chronic fatigue, and that kind of knocked me on my butt around 2013, which is really when I started, I guess, powering forward with the work, although I sort of had my toes in the water before then, and found kinesiology in 2015, and it just changed my life. It allowed me to leave my marriage at the beginning of 2016. And I honestly have to say, I look back now and I'm going, holy crap. Like, I never imagined that I could be living the life that I'm living now. Now, I'm not saying everything's perfect, but I am in a loving, respectful relationship where I actually want to see my partner and spend time with him.
Good thing, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
I never understood it before. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but all these people want to have, date nights with their husband. I didn't get it. I really didn't. My normal was, I thought, relationships were supposed to be hard. So I thought I was getting an A+. I just didn't realize that I was not choosing the right type of hard. Now that I'm in my current relationship, I understand that a hard relationship is because you have to work at it in that positive way to keep the love and connection and respect, and, understand when they're having tough days, and, being in that supportive role, and also, being able to ask for support from them, and that kind of tough, so it was just, I misunderstood, and the overachiever thought I was just doing A+ kind of work.
Well, I love the way you described it in your profile. You described yourself as a recovering, I love the way you said that, a recovering people pleaser and self-flagellator.
Hell yes.
Whoa, that's rough.
It is. But, in people pleasing, the way I look at it is we are putting everybody above us. And we are automatically putting ourselves into an inferior state where we need to please everybody else and be perfect to be able to be acceptable, lovable, worthy, good enough. And that starts us off on like odd footing anyway, because we're already putting ourselves down. And the way I talk about the self-flagellating is, if everybody imagined a megaphone on the top of their head, broadcasting all of what they said about themselves.
Oh, God. This is an interesting society to live in.
Yeah. But that's how you know if your self-talk is decent or not. Because I had a client who came in and she said, no, my self-talk's fine. I said, okay, so put this megaphone on your head, have it broadcast to everybody what you're thinking about yourself. She said, oh, maybe it's not so good then. I'm like, yeah, we would not speak to anybody that we loved, anybody that we hated probably even, or didn't like, or didn't gel with, the way that we often speak to ourselves. I know I was horrible to myself. The self-talk was nasty. And for me, that is something that, I don't do often anymore. And it almost makes me laugh now when I do go down that route, because I've practiced it so much. But that's why, again, I say I'm recovering at both of them, because my natural instinct is to put myself last and put everybody else first. It is not to put my own oxygen mask on. It's not to look after myself, because I am that recovering rescuer, that recovering people pleaser, the person who wants to make everybody happy. And, let's face it, I'm not alone in the healing arts when it comes to that kind of behavior.
Well, you are alone in one sense. I have not heard of anybody using kinesiology as a routine.
Well,
that's really interesting. How'd you come upon that?
Yeah, I was going to ask what that even is.
Yeah. Okay. And beautiful questions, because in the States, kinesiology is much more the kinesiology that we have in terms of physiotherapy or physical therapy or occupational therapy. It's about the movement of muscles. Now, we take that further into the movement of energy. So we are looking at the fact that quantum physicists have proven that the universe is 4% physical matter, which means this meat suit that we're walking around in is 4% of the picture. So what's the other 96%? So many people are only looking at what this physical meat suit is doing. What am I feeling, But when we're going into the other 96% of our energetic, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, financial, hormonal, transformational, metaphysical, all those different types of aspects of us, the different roles we play come into that. When we start looking at ourselves in that light, with the fact that this physical bit is such a small part of the picture, and that's what led to my chronic fatigue, is it wasn't the physical stuff. it was all of the other stuff. It was the emotional sickness, the energetic sickness, the psychological sickness, the spiritual, oh my God, the spiritual desolation in my body. I was crying out for something that I didn't even know existed, really. And that's what I love about kinesiology is we call it a balance when we do kinesiology, because if you imagine us as an equilateral triangle, where on one side we've got chemical and nutritional, we've then got structural and physical, and then we've got mental, emotional, and spiritual. Now, if one side of that triangle's out, the whole triangle collapses. So we need to bring it all back into balance and really look at the way that it all fits together and works together to allow our body to do what it naturally wants to do, because our bodies innately know how to heal themselves. It's just that we ignore the signals, and we don't know how to read the signals because we've been taught that we don't know what those signals are, and we don't know how to read our body, and that we need to defer to other people. We need to go to the doctor to tell us what's wrong with us, or we need to go, to a psychologist to hear what's wrong with us, or we need to, talk to our parents or an elder, We're always told to look outside ourselves for answers. And that's what changed for me as I started going within. And I used kinesiology and I used, other practitioners of different modalities to help me learn how to do that.
I need to get some information on this kinesiology. I need a 10-part YouTube series. That's what I need.
It is amazing. Look, I love the fact that it brings in lots of different bits from lots of different modalities. And so, I go to my doctor, when I need to, and he tries to tell me certain things. I'm like, you've done 50 hours of nutrition, work in your entire degree. I've done 2,500 hours. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know what I'm talking about. We've touched on biochemical pathways in the body. We've touched on the precursors of, that we need for creation of different hormones in the body. We look at the way that the different parts of the body interact, different systems, different organs, the way that the circulation moves through the body. We look at the energy systems of the body. So our chakra system, our meridian system, we use all of that stuff. So we're not just looking at it from one perspective. And this is the thing, you go to a gastroenterologist, they look at that bit. You go to a cardiologist, they look at that bit. You go to your GP and they kind of go, well, we'll either give you something that will poison it out because it's an not natural substance coming into the body, which is effectively in most cases a poisonous substance, even though most drugs obviously have some uses, and I'm not denying that at all. But the way that they come in, they want to do that. They want to burn something off or they want to cut something out. And, the first time I was asked, I was going to the doctor for a long time and they're going, you are the healthiest sick person we know. I don't understand. Don't understand it. All of my blood tests were fine. But doctors are looking for not sick. They're not looking for healthy and vital. They're looking at not sick.
That's a big distinction. I don't think most people grasp how important that distinction is.
Yeah. It took me a long time. But when I rang, so I ended up getting a mental health plan because I thought there was something fundamentally broken with me. And I still remember sitting in my first session with my kinesiologist saying, I am so broken that I need to fix myself to save my marriage. It was slightly off kilter. Ouch. I hear that now. She reminded me of that years later when she was actually teaching me kinesiology, and she's like, holy shit, girl. I swear she just went cha-ching.
It's a great example. It's a great example, though, of beating yourself up, because that's what you were talking about earlier. And oh my goodness, that's exactly what you're doing.
Everything was my fault. Everything was my fault. And I was constantly told everything was my fault. So of course I ended up believing it. I was the reason that everything was going wrong everywhere, every time, and every time I'd sort of say, hang on, but I don't think that's the case. It'd be, no, it is. Yeah, you're to blame for all of this. It's like, okay. So because I already had that bent of blaming myself, that was it. But this receptionist, when I was booking in to get my psychological evaluation and join this psychologist's mindfulness classes, she was the first person to say to me, who's got your back? Now, at the time, that question, I couldn't even speak to her for about 5 minutes because I was sobbing. Because I'm like, nobody.
Yeah.
I have nobody standing behind me. I'm holding all of this house of cards up, and I've crumbled. And she said to me, you're under a bit of stress. We can't get you in for, another 3 or 4 weeks for the psychologist. How about you try our kinesiologist on staff? And I'm like, look, I'm ready to try anything.
Try anything, right?
And again, like Neo, I'd never heard of it before. I was like, what is this voodoo bullshit? I'm being driven towards. And all of a sudden, like I walked in for that session and it just changed my life. It was so profound. She was hitting on every emotion that was in my body. And obviously, we only had an hour. It wasn't like we got to, solve the world and solve.
Right.
I still have regular kinesiology sessions. I still see coaches. I'm still unpacking the layers because, of course, you don't get to 44 years old without a bit of baggage with you. So, we're still unpacking a lot of that stuff. But
it's always going to be unlimited unpacking.
Absolutely.
Always going to be somebody could cut you off on the highway and stir up stuff from 10 years ago that you can't let go of.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think the interesting thing is, I used to sort of go, everyone talks about peeling back the onion and blah, blah, blah. And I used to go, why can't we just, put in the food processor and be done with it? Like just blitz that, blitz that thing till it's gone.
It reminds me of a line from the movie The Blind Side, where one of the protagonists says, "Oh, if you want to get through to him, you have to peel him like an onion." And the other one says, "Not if you use a knife."
Yeah, that's it. And God, don't you wish that was the case with that onion? I swear, it never stops.
It's true.
I'm
it's
so
really
with
something.
you.
It's one of the things about life, it's the learning never stops. The lessons never stop. The negative thoughts, they never stop. You can use muscle memory to trim the fat on how often the ego or the pain body steps up, as Eckhart Tolle would say. But it's always there. He said something earlier about trying to be perfect for everybody. Yeah. And what made me really want to step out of that was I noticed, I think it was in high school, I noticed that, and I didn't know about the law of attraction until I was 28. In high school, I noticed that everybody had their own definition of perfect. And for me it would be possible through hard work and dedication for me to fulfill everybody's idea of perfect around me. But as soon as 2 people got in the same room, I was screwed. And I was always in a room with multiple people, playing sports. So I knew that just wasn't going to be. And I was like, well, if life is telling me that it's not going to work that way, then, let me just adjust how I think about things. And if it's like, if I'm not pleasing any of the 8.4 billion people on this earth, who's left to please? Me. I'm the only one left. It's either them or me. So, and that's when I started doing things to please me. And I noticed an immediate difference in the events that were unfolding and how I felt about life. I was just a happier person. And I carried that with me the whole time. I wish I had seen The Secret. If I had saw The Secret in high school or knew about the law of attraction, oh my God.
But even that realization you've had so young is so important. Oh my goodness. Like I wish I'd gotten to it that soon.
Oh, me too. I didn't see The Secret till I was 50. Hell. I mean, good grief.
Yeah.
It was football. Like one coach wanted you to do one thing and another coach wanted you to do this. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was karate. One of my master instructors had a blowout with number 3 in command, basically. And it was about techniques. And when it's karate, there is no, I'm going to coach it this way, you coach it that way. The whole school needs to be on one accord. And so, stuff like that really, really opened my eyes to I can't please everybody. So I might as well just please myself while I'm here. Time is short. People dropping like flies. Might as well have a little bit of fun. Smile as much as I can. Do all the things that cause smiling. And I'm happy I got that early on.
And what a beautiful blessing for your life, for you to understand that at high school when most people are feeling so pressured.
Yes.
Because and that's what I try and work with when I do have, teenagers in the clinic is, a few of those different concepts. So in kinesiology, I will test. So I use muscle testing. So if nothing is stressing the body, the muscle can hold strong. If something is stressing the body, the muscle will give. So it cannot hold its tone. And so I will test up my best is good enough. Now for me, because that feels true, it's not going. But if somebody else, who is in that perfectionist type spiral, it will test up as a no. So it will say, no, my best isn't good enough. So then you ask, is my best 100%? And usually if it said, no, my best isn't good enough, of course 100% goes, hell no. But instead of going down, we're going up. So we count up. And I mean, I've gotten to people who have been trying to please, like be 108 perfect people, 260 perfect people, 36 perfect people, 28 perfect people. It is like you are trying to be that many perfect people to feel like you are good enough as your one person. Now, how much stress or pressure does that put on somebody? And then I ask people, okay, yeah, 100%. And so when you look at it and you go, okay, if you imagine, let's take the 38 perfect people standing around you in a room and they all have their book. Let's pretend this is the rule book of perfection. But it's got teeny tiny writing and a million different rules and variations of their idea of perfection on everything. How many of those rules books have the same rules? And Neo, you put it perfectly, none of them. So you are working to 38 conflicting ideas of perfection and what perfect means in each moment. And then you're trying to go, okay, so which is the most perfect? And I need to be doing that. But hang on now, that can't be. And so you spend half your life in overwhelm.
And you're not in your authentic self.
Hell no.
While you're in front of those people. And the problem is when those people leave the room and you're in the shower or using the bathroom, your mind is now accustomed to acting like that
Yes.
other version of you, that fictitious version of you. And so now you're doing it in your off time. Being fake, trying to be real, thinking it's real, failing at being their perfection, because no matter what, you're not going to meet their perfection. So the failure in not meeting their perfection standard is a dark cloud hanging over you. Plus, you're not being your authentic self. Another dark cloud hanging over you. You got a couple of dark clouds. Then you're looking at your life, wondering why things aren't what you want them to be.
Yeah. And I was in that space because I didn't know who I was. I had no clue who I was because I was a different me for my parents, for my sister, for my ex-husband, for my kids, for my, friends. In every situation, I was a different person. I was constantly trying to swap the hats depending on who I was with. And very rarely did I feel like I was me. And that was the hardest thing coming out of this was, well, I'm in my mid to late 30s and I don't even know who I am.
What's the first thing you discovered that was you?
That was me.
That you held on to in this transformation. What's the first major thing about you that you noticed? All right, that wasn't me. I'm changing it to this, and you changed it, and you loved it, and you kept it ever since.
Do you know what's really interesting? I think it's that access to intuition. So the first real thing that made me go, this is not right, was I was sitting in front of a gynecologist because everything was going wrong. I was suffering 13 days a month with my menstrual cycle, almost half the month. And he tried to put me on antidepressants to sort it out.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I had half of my time was in the middle of the month and half my time was at the end of the month. I was suffering and I was not healthy. I was not well. And he tried to put me on antidepressants to fix it. And I'm like, my whole body went, what? Oh my God. And that was that first I'd been getting red flags through my relationship since before we even got engaged. I was getting red flags, but I ignored them because, relationships are supposed to be hard and this is the kind of man you should marry. And, there was all these sorts of stories going on. And I thought for the most part, we were kind of doing all right. And also I was over the other side of the world from my family. I was in the UK at the time. And so there was this distance thing and there were all sorts of other traumas playing into it. So, it was by no means his fault nor mine, but I was getting red flags from very early on that the behaviors that I was dealing with then were not normal, but they also kind of were my normal at the same time, which is a bit of that weird kind of, is it me? Is it them? It must be me because it's always me. But I think that real bash of intuition was what started me down the natural therapies path. And I looked back And I've kept seeing all those red flags, all those times that I was like, you should have left the marriage. And I mean, I used to be in the UK and I would have my suit bags on the bed and I would pack them and I'd be ready to walk out that door. And I'd go, I have no money because he controls it. I have nowhere to go. So I'd unpack them and they'd all be put away by the time he got home from work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know what to do.
Intuition is screaming at you,
Oh,
literally.
hell yeah. Hell yes. It was all the time. And I was ignoring it. And I think that's the thing now. If I get that little flusher of, oh, I stop and I listen to it. Because literally my intuition was screaming at me. It was screaming at me. I mean, it was screaming at me the whole time. Get out, get out, get out. But I couldn't because it wasn't then following that prescription that had been laid out for me. You know, you go to university, you finish uni, you get a job, you get married, you have your kids, you know, you retire, you travel, you know, pretty much that's it. And I was just kind of waiting for the kids to get to high school and get through high school.
I never liked that plan.
No.
Retire, then vacation for one.
No.
I'm not going to wait to take vacations till I'm 65. I want to take them to where I can still play football on the beach, you know, with my kids, or ride a horseback or whatever, and just get a job and plug away for 25 years.
God, no.
Oh, nah, there's something ain't right with that plan.
Yeah.
It just never sat right with me, and I'm glad that I stuck with that. Yeah. It became a mental game. You know, you got to tell you while the world and everything around you is telling you that's the way to go, and your gut's telling you you're not. This little voice is telling you you're not. You have to take that little voice and make it bigger in your mind. Yeah. You got to take that voice and scream it louder than the other ones. And the other ones are going to keep screaming all day long. So you got to, and they seem to be on autopilot screaming at you. This is the way to be. This is the way to be. People, TV, even when no one's talking, the standard is screaming at you, and you still got to stand up and put in all that effort and scream back. Yeah. No, that's you. That's y'all. I got a different plan.
That actually illustrates beautifully from my perspective the importance of, we have these very loud messages coming and we have this little tiny voice inside. Yeah. That's a really important dichotomy to understand, because when you understand it that way, it becomes so easy to understand why you ignore the little voice inside. Yeah. It's because it's little.
Yeah.
And it never seemed to have any real impact before. And you don't really know what to do with it because you never really did anything with it before. So why would I listen to that?
Yeah.
And nobody else can hear it.
And no one else can hear it. Yeah. So if you say you've got it, you're crazy.
The other thing is the standard. It's how people are being raised in life. They call it the American dream. This is the way to be. Everybody's on the same page. And this little voice in the back of only my head is completely opposing that.
Yeah.
Everybody listen up, everybody at home. That little voice, the only one that matters. And that's
the subtitle of my book. The subtitle of my book is A Spiritual Guide to Prioritizing Internal Truth Over External Influence. And that's exactly it. It is really about, you know, when you think about it, we are built to move at walking pace unless we're running away from something that's threatening our life.
Which for many of us is a lot.
Yeah, well, at the moment, yeah. But physiologically, that's how we're built. We haven't changed our physiology in however many, tens of thousands, whatever years we've been around. And we're still built that way. And this is where, those of us on that spiritual path keep talking about the beingness of it and the needing to slow down and the needing to get back to nature, because we understand that physiology, that we can't move at that pace. Yet we are hurtling around in cars at, 40, 60, 80, 100 kilometers an hour. We are having constant bombardment of pings and dings from our phone and lights and noises and sounds and everything coming at us all the time. And our body is constantly, is that one a threat? Is that one a threat? Is that one a threat? Because of our wiring and our physiology.
Fight or flight, self-preservation.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to get around these rules, y'all. Got to get around these rules.
Yes. And that's why my heart sings when I hear you speak, Neo, because it's like, yes, exactly. We need to burn those rule books that everybody else has made for our life. And I get my clients to bring it down to one question every moment. What is in my highest good right now?
I like
What
that.
is in my highest good right now? Because your highest good can never be detrimental to anybody else because we're all interconnected. So if your highest good is detrimental to somebody else, it's actually not your highest good, it's your ego speaking. You know, I ask what's in my highest good, and sometimes I don't get the answer that I would really, really like, but I get what is in my highest good. And when I act on it, everything expands. When I ignore it, less good results.
There's a funny thing that goes along with that too,
Yeah.
because it takes time
Yeah.
and often coaching and help and so forth
Yeah.
to learn to do this. But even then, when you're in the process of learning to do it, you're not only dealing with all those outside factors, outside experiences and so forth, but you're learning to go inside and trust in something that you never really trusted before. And if you do it, you get a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then one day, all of a sudden, something amazing happens. You find other people like you
Hey.
for what
Yeah.
you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't part of the original explanation that I got. I don't know about you.
It doesn't even make sense. According to like, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in America, if you're looking out for number one, there is no other person looking out for number one who you guys are both have the same interest.
Yeah.
It's either you or me. It's a competitive, either I'm gonna win,
Because it's power over.
Yeah, but now with only this,
Mm.
all three of us can be looking out for number one and simultaneously be looking out for number one.
Because we're doing power with and power to. I understand that if I am holding your hands and we are all giving power to each other and we are having power in our interaction with each other, the raising tide raises all the boats. I am not pushing you under the waves trying to drown you to save my ass.
I want to throw this in there. You said giving energy. I think you said giving energy to each other. I did this meditation where the guy, it's like a guided meditation, and he says, picture like if you were to get electrocuted and you were holding hands with Walt, and Walt was holding hands with me, the shock would go through all of us.
Yeah.
And he said, now imagine everyone on a planet is touching. That electricity is going to flow through all of them. So he says, when you're breathing, your breath is that electricity flowing through everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's like a totally beautiful way of meditating. It's amazing. But what I wanted to say was, Walt, I tried a little something different. And I want to ask you about the distinguishing the voice in a second. It was so crazy. The other night I had like a visual. There were two people across the room, and their eyes first turned like all black, but then they turned into like smoky waviness just in their eyes. And then it was like everybody on the whole planet, their eyes turned to smoky waviness. So at that point in my mind, all of their names disappeared. Everybody was just universe. We stripped it down to just universe energy. And I was like, all right, that's me. That, that's I'm one with everybody. And I was like, this is a better way for me to, love thy neighbor and appreciate and not hate and all this other stuff. Like not hate, but like hate on somebody. Like, why he driving that Lexus? I'm not. That type of haterade. And it was cool. And I sat on it for a day and it was great. It was amazing. I was able to see others in a different light, as in like, let's say I just submitted something to Puff Daddy. I'm sure you guys both know who Puff Daddy is. And in my mind, he doesn't know who I am yet. However, once Puff Daddy's eyes disappear and it's wavy universe knows exactly who I am. Yeah. So I can look at Puffy and say he knows who I am and be real with it. And so that turned into the next day, my eyes became wavy too. So now it wasn't me in the universe. And I've been talking about being one for years, and it was never completely feel worthy clear to me until I took my eyes and they became just the smoky waviness, same as everyone else's. So it was like a total gel thing. Amanda, I always try to come up with ways to different ways of seeing things.
Yeah,
I love mental exercises and remotes that you have going on. I mean, not most reminders. I got like 50 reminders that go off throughout the day. As many reminders I have go off throughout the day to keep me doing mental exercises and staying present and whatnot. If you change the way you view something, it's kind of like done for you. It's called like autopilot does it for you.
Yeah.
And so this is a great one that I'm on. It's like today's like day 2 or 3. The results have been crazy. I've been getting phone calls. I got an email from Puff Daddy's staff today with 3 or 4 different things that I got to go in and fill out. And yeah, things are moving. And it was amazing because I've been waiting for a phone call from this guy, Joe, basically since July 9th.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
the next day he called me. He's the CEO of his company. He called me with the COO on the phone. We want to do a 50,000 person. They have a 50,000 person subscriber list, and they want me to do a text message, inspirational text message every morning to everybody. And they presented that to me in July, and I've been waiting. You know, we talk once a month, you know, about it, but we don't really make any grounds. The next day he called me. The next day out of nowhere, he just called me.
It's the wavy eyes.
Yeah, so it's like see different, be different. You know, it's
Beautiful.
a whole different thing.
And when you
I
say see
love
different,
that.
be different, you mean literally see different with different eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
different.
Literally 100%. I'm no longer these eyes while you guys have universal eyes. I've gotten rid of these eyes. This flesh suit, temporary.
Yeah.
And it become a whole different. It's you ask for things differently. Totally different, because the other way of asking is begging. I don't have it yet. What's it going to take? Please give it to me. It's outside of, and we know everything's made of vibrating energy. To ask for something outside of you is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
You know, you're just changing your house to look bigger, your car to look better when you upgrade it. It's still, you know, to me, God car and God shelter, no matter where you at, hotel, staying in a trailer. So changing the way you're looking at things changes the way you ask for things, changes your confidence on whether you're going to get it or not. Now that we all working on the same page, now that I don't have to work against Puff Daddy's security, his secretary who filters 1,000, 10,000, 14,000 messages a day. I don't have to worry about getting lost in those messages. It's direct contact right here. I know you love me. I know you want to contact me. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's a totally
And that's that highest good aspect.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, it's that oneness. It's looking at everything from that oneness.
It's been a trip. I can't wait.
Yeah,
But before I don't want to go too far.
No, I love it. I love it.
I'm going to go back to when we were talking about that small voice, that tiny voice, and trusting it. I'll trust this voice. It's the smallest voice. It opposes everything I've ever been taught. The thing is, distinguishing these voices. I always compare it to when you're in high school and you call your girlfriend or boyfriend and they don't answer. And you call them back and they're like, and then you're like, man, why didn't they answer? Am I in trouble? Are they mad at me? Did I say something?
Did I do something wrong? Me.
And so distinguishing that intuitive voice from that BS voice that is always coming at us and 99.9% of the time is wrong. They were just in the shower. That's why they didn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
You know, or like these guys with Joe and them. We've been, you know, they've been stalling for 2-3 months now. I'm starting to get downright upset about the situation when, you know, in actuality, they had some other things they needed to put in place to make this whole thing happen. And they've been working on it and loving me and looking at my videos ever since. So it's like those voices, distinguishing them. Me and Walt have talked about this at least a dozen times because it's such an important subject. How is it you found, because I would like for you to explain to people who haven't gotten the way yet how you got that way and how you're distinguishing them today as well.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of it was unpacking my old conditioning, which obviously I'm still doing. You know, understanding, you know, if the other night I came in completely resentful after a long day at work, I've come in, gone to cook dinner, the pan that had been washed the night before still had, you know, I don't know, dirt in it from the night before. And I'm like, but why did I have that reaction? It had nothing to do with the fact that the pan was dirty. It was the fact that everybody else was sitting around resting and relaxing after their long days. And I came in after my long day and I'm getting ready to cook everyone dinner and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even have a damn pan to clean it in. The resentment, which is part of the envy family, was coming because I just wanted to take 5 or 10 minutes to sit down. Now, you know what? I absolutely could have, and I ended up doing so. But I felt that resentment first. And I probably let a few little, Tourette'sy type things out, when I realized, and slammed a few things or whatever. But you know what? It took me 5 minutes to re-clean, wash up all of the dishes actually that were there from the rest of that day. All of that sort of, like, it was nothing. But I felt that old
just
story.
To be clear, somebody did need a good talking to, though. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna wash the dish, right?
Look, yeah, but again, when you think about Byron Katie's work, really, whose
Byron
expectation
Katie?
is that? So Byron Katie is the one who coined the work, and so her story is fascinating, actually. But she asks basically 4 questions: Is it true? Is it true that somebody should have washed that pan properly? Of course, you want to go, yes, it is, but by whose version of truth? Well,
it's true that it shouldn't have been washed improperly, because the definition of washing is washing it. If someone had a goal to wash it and they didn't complete it.
Yeah. But that's my expectation. And that's my stuff, not their stuff. They did a really quick job. They probably weren't even paying attention. But then you go, okay, how do I know that that is absolutely true, 100% true? How do I know that's 100% true? And I can't remember the other 2 questions, but basically what you end up doing is you sort of, you're looking at the way that you sort of end up flipping that on its head. Well, I actually don't know that that's true. I don't know what the person who washed that was thinking about at the time. I don't know what their day had been like. I don't know, they may not have the eyesight I've got. Maybe they didn't see that dirt. I mean, the pan is pretty beaten up. I'd actually need a new pan, to be fair. Maybe they didn't see it.
And by the way, these other two questions are important. I want to bring them in.
They are.
The third one is, how do you react when you believe that thought?
That's it. Yes.
How do you react when you believe that thought? And then the fourth is, who would you be without the thought?
Yes, that's it. Do you know, I do them subconsciously, and yet I forget the last 2 questions all the time. So thank you so much for
You're welcome. Well, I have to admit, I looked it up because I remember them, so I have to remind myself too.
We missed the second one. The first one was, is it true? What was the second one?
Is it absolutely true?
Oh, so the first one, is it true? And the second one is absolutely true.
Yeah. Because when you ask, is it true? Of course you want to go, yes, it is. Because you're still in your righteousness. You're still in your self-righteousness. You're still in your soapbox going, hell yes, it's true. Hell yes, they should bloody wash those dishes properly. But is it absolutely true? Because let's face it, they didn't. So it's not truth.
And the way she phrased it is, can you absolutely know that it's true?
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're looking at 100% truth. So one of the comments, or one of the chapters I've got in my book, is about the truth having 144 sides. And if we can think about the fact that, if you have 10 people who look at a car accident from 10 different angles, they will tell the police 10 different stories. And police people know this.
Oh, yeah.
Because, sometimes the car color will change, the direction will change, the speed will change, the lights will, everything will change, because of the perception of the people. And this also goes back to what we were talking about a bit about that, like the perfectionism and things. And you were talking about the phone call and, when you ring your girlfriend and, in high school and you're like, oh shit, they didn't ring. What have I done wrong? Blah, blah, blah. The way I talk about it with, a lot of clients actually is that we perceive other people's perceptions of us. So we pick up all of our life experience, all of our behaviors, all of our beliefs, all of our thoughts about ourselves. We put them into the other person. And then we look back at ourselves, usually with the most negative idea of ourselves through them. So we are perceiving their perception of us through our own perception of self. So when we go, do we absolutely know it's true? Well, we're putting everything about us into that person. So already, how far from the truth are we? And then they are more than likely doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They are perceiving our perception of them through their perception of self that they've put into us. It's mind-blowing.
That's exactly why I gave up on all of that.
Yeah, which is an amazing insight for you.
Because I'm like, I keep putting the wrong things out there. And it was during one of my the Law of Attraction summits, I'll never forget. I looked out the window at my neighbor across the street, older guy. I think he was 72 years old. Used to fly helicopters for the Navy. I said, I wonder what he's doing right now. I don't know where. I was just like, I wonder what he's doing right now. I said, he probably watching TV, sitting in the living room. You know, I have no clue what's going on over here. And I said, well, wait a minute. I would love for him to be watching the summit right now, but I'm over here watering the seed, giving energy off that he doesn't even know that I'm doing it. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done trying to guess. I'm just going. That's when the whole smoky eye thing comes into it. I'm going to give you what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the reins on what you're thinking and believe it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. To the naked eye, to the common person. Like if I was to walk up to the gas station and tell the cashier this, they tell me to go fly a kite.
Yeah.
And it's a problem because that's the problem in society right now. That's the reason people are manifesting all kind of craziness into their life right now. It's because they're not taking this type of stuff seriously. And it's so freaking critical.
The analogy I use with my clients is when my son was little, he had this beautiful little blue and green striped collared shirt and he had these little overalls on. And I just remember this particular day, my mum was over from Australia and she was putting together this like obelisk for the garden that beans could grow up. Highly exciting. But she's got out the electric drill and she's putting it together for me. And my son runs inside, grabs his Fisher-Price toolkit and comes out. Other cool brands are available, by the way. We're not giving a plug here.
No,
just by the way, goes and grabs that toolkit and gets his plastic drill and starts, checking the screws that Granny's, tightened, making sure they're tight enough. That's the way I look at people who are using their unresourceful behaviors. They haven't emerged from that amygdala programming into grown-up adult programming. They're staying in that child and teenager part of the hero's journey, not progressing through the apostasis to die, to be reborn into the young adult and mature adult side of the hero's journey. And so, I kind of use the analogy that I know that everything I need to build a massive, amazing castle exists in our local hardware store. I can get bricks and timber and all sorts of stuff. I don't know how to build it yet. But I am out there. I'm looking for the tools. I'm learning how to use the things. I'm curious about it all. And I know you can build castles because I've seen them before. So therefore, that's what I'm working towards. And I know that if I needed to, I could learn to do that. It might take me a while, but that's what I'm working on. Now, some people will drive down the road and they won't even see the hardware store. It's not even in their vision. Others will look at it and go, not for me. Other people will go in and I like the gardening section or the paint section or this section or that section. But I can tell you now, if I handed a power tool to my son when he was 18 months old, he'd have likely chopped his arm off or injured himself. He's not prepared for it. And that's the way I look at people who are out there acting unresourcefully. Some haven't moved away from that amygdala programming, from that early childhood programming that they have inherited from their parents and their parents and their parents and on. And they've also then, packed on all the lifetime conditioning that those behaviors have given them. But they may not know the work exists. They may have never been exposed to it. They may be like me, who was just, who was getting these intuitive nudges, but didn't really know what they were. And so that's the way I look at it. And what that helps me do is I see those people who are acting unresourcefully, like my 2-year-old, 18-month-old son. And it brings up compassion and empathy. They may not know that the hardware store exists. They may not know that it's possible to build castles. They may just go, that's too hard. I'm just going to keep on my path or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so it just helps me to understand, if you love gardening, great, I will love you and I will help you build your garden to be the best garden you can. If you just love painting, let's make the most beautiful pictures we can. We can kind of then, I guess, work within the realms of what they've got. But I want the people who are at least prepared to walk through the door of the hardware store. They're the people I'm looking for, because then I can kind of show them around and eventually, hopefully, teach them how to use the power tools.
And they're going to be the ones who are going to be receptive anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I had to niche down when I was doing life coaching. I only deal with people who know about the law of attraction already.
Yeah.
I'm not teaching it no more. That's a whole 4 or 6 hours right there. I'm not teaching it no more.
Yeah. Absolutely. But you were asking me about my first forays into intuitive, and how I understood that. So, yes, there was the unpacking of the programming, which was super, super important. But then it was also understanding, and this was mind blowing for me. So, it was understanding the different psychic senses. Now, you can call them intuitive senses, you can call them whatever the hell you want, but I'll use the sort of psychic terms because for me they're easiest. You've got clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. That is seeing symbols and signs and things that make you go, oh my God, yes, that. Oh, there's that reminder, or a word catches your eye, or, you're using that power of sight to see. You've got clairaudience, which is hearing. So you might walk past people and you'll hear a snippet of their conversation and go, oh my God, that. Or you'll turn on a radio and it'll be certain song lyrics or words that are coming out and you're like, oh my God, what a message, or whatever it is. You then have claircognizance, which is clear knowing. That's where you just know things, which is my strongest, by the way. And I fought against that for so long because I'm like, how do I know? Like, you can't just know things. You need to know how. You then have clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And then you have clairgustance and clairsalience. So clairsalience is clear smelling and clairgustance is clear taste. So I have a client who is huge on the clairsalience, the smell. And so she will walk down the street and she will catch whiffs of different things. And say, for example, for me, every time I smell coffee, I can feel my grandmother present because she used to grind her own coffee beans and I just get that beautiful scent. There's this different sort of musty scent when my grandfather's near, but I also feel his hand on my shoulder. So when he was alive, he'd be standing cooking the barbecue and I'd go and, fill up his glass of red wine and take it back to him and he'd put his hand on my shoulder and we'd have a little chat. And so now when he's near, I feel him with his hand on my shoulder. And so my strongest ones was the claircognizance, and I didn't like that because, again, I wanted the proof. I wanted that, how do I know that? So I actually thought it was the clear feeling because I can feel what other people are going through. I had a client in the other day and he was, as soon as I touched him, I'm like, he's not told me the whole story of what's going on, but I could feel like Mentos in a Coke bottle, but the lid was still on tight. It was this kind of energetic feeling and I could feel the grief in his lungs and he'd not mentioned anything about that grief particularly. And it's because his mum's sort of, heading into those twilight years and he's starting the grieving process really. And that only came out when, I sort of touched him and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Because I could feel it in my body. And so that was the one that I used to back up this claircognizance, this clear knowing. So I actually thought I was more clairsentient than claircognizant, but then I realized that the knowing comes and then I'm feeling or I'm hearing or I'm seeing or I'm using the other senses to back it up. The clairaudience has been really interesting for me. So this is what you were saying about that internal voice. So for me, when I'm getting clairaudient messages, it comes in at the back here, like really deep. It's almost behind this ear. That's where I get it from. If I'm thinking it, and if it's my story, it comes from here. It's much more frontal in my hearing. I know that kind of probably sounds quite weird, but it's like when it's a message from somebody else or from spirit or from the universe, whatever you want to call it, it really comes in deep through this side.
I don't think it's weird at all, actually. I mean, I understand why you would say that. I can see some people might say it's weird, but I actually don't think it's all that weird if you just think that whenever we hear sounds, we don't just hear sound generally. We hear it over there or over here, over here, over here. We hear it in a particular location. So for you to perceive that you're experiencing a sound in front rather than in back or whatever, what's so difficult to understand? That's actually fairly straightforward in my view.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where, and that's the way that I can tell now when it's my internal chatter or message from spirit.
Ooh, I never thought about that.
And that's cool that you have a really cool, easy definer that way. It took me the longest time, and like Neo said, we've talked about this a lot. It took me the longest time to be able to know which were my internal being messages and which ones were my ego messages and which were messages that came from somebody next door, because it really confused the heck out of me. And then the one thing that made the most sense to me, that proved to be the most accurate for me, was when I recognized that the true messages were the ones that felt really good. And I have to distinguish
Yes.
here. They weren't the ones that just felt really good because I wanted them to feel good. They felt
Yeah.
good regardless of whether I wanted them to feel good.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and it's like again in my body, because my clairsentient, I have kind of I'm developing all of those psychic senses. So to be to be the kind of teacher I want to be, I need to be strong in at least 4. So I'm kind of developing all 6
I'm
at the
impressed. I mean,
moment.
I barely have maybe 1 or 2, so you're doing great as far as I'm
Well, you
concerned.
do. We all have all of them. But again, we all have predominant ones. So, most people will rely on 1 or 2 and they don't take the time to develop the others. Now, I have naturally had the clairaudience, the clairvoyance, the claircognizance, and the clairsentience most of my life. I just didn't call them that and I didn't recognize them as that. And now that I'm calling them that, it's like they come quicker and quicker and quicker. But again, I will feel into my body. And as you said, that difference in feeling, it's like a soul deep feeling for me. It's like a cellular knowingness.
Yeah.
As opposed to that quick rush of, the hit of dopamine, or it's not like a hormonal, this is amazing, this is great, I've just had a coffee, kind of excitement feeling. It's like this cellular excitement or this cellular knowingness that I get.
It's different.
Yeah,
Like
it's an embodied.
It takes a meditative soul to be able to feel that difference. The average person would just think they were happy. Clairvoyance. If clairsentient is feeling, what would you describe clairvoyance as? Which one is that?
That's clear seeing. Clear seeing. Okay. So people often think with clairvoyance that it's, seeing dead people and stuff. Now that is some of it for certain types of clairvoyance, but not all clairvoyants work in that way. So for me, I've always seen number repetitions, or I've seen feathers on the ground, or I've seen, butterflies or dragonflies, or like I will have these things, or I will catch words on a page. Like I'll be working with a client and I'll open a book to a page and go, oh, that word. Okay, that's what I need.
Here's one more feather for you.
I love it.
Take that sign to do whatever you were thinking when I just showed you that.
And or I'll catch something on the wall and I'll go, oh, that word. Okay. And even when I'm working with clients, I will be testing through, and the word, even though I test through a list, the word that caught my eye first, you can guarantee that's the one. Yeah, and I use I use the muscle testing now more to prove to the client that that's the one, because I now know that I could probably do it just with those other senses.
But I'm still
because I feel so confident in it.
Because that first impression, whatever that first impression is, I don't care what sense you associate it with.
Yeah.
When I can actually trust myself long enough to say, okay, I'm going to go with whatever that is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me right now, but I'm just going to go with it. It plays out. It plays out exactly the way it should. But the moment I start second guessing it, saying, no, it can't be that, that's when I get so messed up. It's crazy.
Yeah. Do you know, I'll give you a really good example, and this is very vulnerable and honest of you. Back in April, I got an inkling that I needed to leave my clinic space. So I had 2 clinic spaces. This is my home clinic. And I got an inkling to leave my clinic space. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I need that external clinic space to be a professional. And to, I've had it my whole time. I've been in practice almost 6 years. Actually, next week, it'll be 6 years that I've been in practice.
Wow.
And, for 5.5 years, I've had this clinic space, and I've had that professional outlook and all of this story. And you can hear its story. Mm-hmm. So I fought against it. I almost did not make rent at the end of last month for my business. Wow. Because the universe was like, why the hell did you not act on it when we gave you that inkling? I handed in my notice. I moved my clinic home, and guess what? Clients are coming back. Now that is, it's not the first time I've done it to my business too, by the way, in terms of not listening to that little flutter and having the story override it. Now, obviously, in hindsight, I can now see that I was denying the story. I was denying my truth. I was, resisting whatever it was. It wasn't in alignment. It wasn't in flow. And yet that was the way, if you don't listen to those nudges, the universe does push you. I had nudges for years, since before I got married, that this man was not the right man for me. Yet I ignored them because I was being told he was. So I believed that he was, and ended up with chronic fatigue because I hadn't paid attention to it. So eventually the universe had to slap me down to a point where I had no choice but to do the work. I had no other choice left to me. And it was the same with this. It was like, you're not going to make rent, so how do you make this work? Well, you've got to hand in notice and you've got to fully set up at home. Now, every time I walk through my front door, because my front door is literally just through there, I walk in, I see this open door, and I'm like, oh my God, all of my stuff is in the same place for the first time since I started practicing. Like, this is phenomenal. I love it. I get so excited seeing my room set up. You know, I've got my space for coaching. I've got my space for healing. I have all of my tools in the one spot. And I feel my heart light up. That's that embodied knowing that I've done the right thing, that I'm in the right place.
Yeah, you don't have to push it. It's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. Hey, we're running out of time. I want to make sure that I get a couple things in here. First of all, thank you for joining us. We really
it's been magical. I'm so blessed for your just your connection and your love and your heart and your openness. Like, it's just been amazing, both of you. Thank you so much. And Neo, by the way, that is so going to come through with Puff. You know it.
Want it.
And I want to hear about it from you. Can't wait.
Second thing is you mentioned the book. I imagine there could be other things that people would want to contact you about. Maybe they want to work with you directly. Maybe they want to read more about what you've got and so forth. How do they find you?
So my website is www.amandakate.com.au, and most of my social links are there. I think apart from my TikTok one, because I've only just started on that. I'm having a bit of a play. So
That's all right.
That's the easiest place to go to. But I'm on all the socials. I do Facebook and LinkedIn and Insta and YouTube. None of them particularly consistently or well, but I'm doing all of them. Depending where the energy goes, I'll just go.
But they're all Amanda Kate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, some of them have different handles, but I'm working on that. If you search for Amanda Kate Kinesiology, I'll come up.
Okay. What we'll do is
go to my website.
We'll put the website address into the show notes. So that's the easiest way. And then people can find their way from there. So that's good.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then the other thing I wanted to do is to tell you something that I make it a practice to tell all of my guests. And that is, you, like so many people, have reached out and touched many people you've never met, never seen, never will see, never will meet. You've touched their lives in ways that you'll never know about, but you did touch their lives, and you helped them in ways you never heard about even, and never will hear about. But I think we need to be recognized for that. So I want to thank you on behalf of what you've been doing to reach out to people and what you're continuing to do on behalf of people. I want to thank you on their behalf.
Oh, and thank you for exactly the same. You know, all of you, both of you are just, amazing humans. And I love the work you're bringing into the world. And so grateful. We need so many more people doing this and connecting in for this and, and bringing light to the world, because there's a lot of shadow. And I think, the more light we get, the more we can shine those lights on the shadows and, transmute them.
And of course, Neo, I've known all along just how much you bring to the table here. I mean, it's just crazy how much you bring to the table. But you just brought more of it. Thank you for leading. You knew I wasn't in a place where I could really do a lot of leading today. Thank you for doing the lead. I appreciate that.
I got you, brother. I got you. Anything to get the message out.
Yeah.
Hey,
and Walsh, I hope this has brought some healing and happiness for you today as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's like I tell everybody, I do this, call the show, the subtitle is Your Daily Dose of Happy. And I do that for one reason. And that one reason is that I want me and my co-hosts and my guests and my listeners to all feel better by the end of the show. If that is the case, it is a successful show. And we just had a really successful show.
Oh,
good,
because
you're about to go into the weekend and you don't do shows on Saturday and Sunday. So tomorrow, find your daily dose. Go back and watch another episode of us.
I love it. All right. Thank you guys very much. Thank you to all of our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.